Hello, everyone, and welcome to Accessible Pittsburgh's Community Lecture Night. I'm Elisa Grishman. I am the director of Accessible Pittsburgh, and I am absolutely delighted to have everyone here tonight. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. So, when we are in settings like this, we usually do descriptions of ourselves to make everything more accessible to people who are blind and low vision. So, I'm a fat white woman with brown hair. I'm wearing a black t-shirt that has a rocking chair and a wheelchair, and it says rock and roll forever. Before we start, I first want to send out a lot of thank yous. First and foremost to Debbie, Donna, Kendra, Monica, and Nyota, who are the board of directors of Access Mob Pittsburgh. We have Dean here tonight, who is doing all of our in-person tech work. We have Katie, who is our meeting manager. Clean Air Tools, PGH, has been providing air filtration services to the room to help mitigate COVID concerns. A huge thanks to our fiscal agent, Disability Pride PA. Without them, we couldn't do any of this. And a huge, huge thank you to the Three Rivers Community Foundation. This is the last lecture under our series that's been funded by them. They generously gave us a grant to do a year's worth of lectures, and it's been wonderful. We are continuing the lecture series after this. Our next grant is from the Opportunity Fund. We will be switching to online only for those lectures. There will be more announcements about that in our mailing list and on our social media. Closed captions are available for this meeting, and there's a link to the transcript in the chat. We ask that everyone please remain muted and keep your cameras off during the meeting. So please, during the meeting here, I should ask quickly, do you want people to ask questions while you're talking or wait till the end? Okay, so please hold any questions that you have until the end of the presentation, and we will, let you know when it's time. You may message the Access Mob Pittsburgh facilitator in the chat if you have a question, if you have a problem, or if you have an access need. For people here in person, there are two emergency exits. One is back behind everyone to your left. There is a door over there that says emergency exit, alarm will sound. There's another door to the back on the other side. If you go out that door and go to the right, that is where the other emergency exit is. There are bathrooms that are out that door and to the left. This is being recorded, so if you do not want to be on the recording, can you raise your hand right now just so we know? Perfect, then we're all good. If you want to sit, great. We are a very accommodating space. If you want to stand up, if you need to walk around, if you need to sit on the floor, please make yourself comfortable. Just make sure you do it in a way that's not distracting to the speakers. At the end, there's going to be Q&A. When that happens, please raise your hand with the virtual reaction or in person. Or if you have a problem with that, let the facilitator know and wait to be called on. If you are on the telephone as opposed to on the Zoom app, you can hit *9 to raise your hand, and then when you're called on, *6 to unmute. When you are called on, you may ask your question verbally or turn on your camera and ask in ASL, or you can type questions into the chat for the Access Mob facilitator to read out loud. You do not need to turn on your camera unless you need to use ASL. Only talk if you have the mic, so people in the room here, I'm going to have a portable mic that I'll bring around for the Q&A. Please wait till you have the mic until you have that. We do have the Zoom chat turned off for accessibility reasons. Again, if you need to reach the facilitator, you can message them and they can respond to you. At the end of this, afterwards, I'm going to be sending out a survey to everyone who's participated. So at the end of this, especially for people who are here in person, if you haven't already done so on your way out, can you sign in on the sign-in sheet? We can bring that in later, but we'd really like to know how this went for folks because that helps us learn how to do things better in the future. And that's it for the house. I guess if we don't have time to answer all of your questions, if you can please, uh, uh, hold on. We'll figure this. I'm sorry. If we don't have time to answer all of your questions, please email accessmobpittsburgh, that's all spelled out, at gmail.com. So it is my absolute privilege to welcome our guests. Tonight we are hosting the Accessible Prosthetics Club at the University of Pittsburgh. Our speakers are Sruthi, Kumar, and Norah Stivala. I hope I'm saying that right. In their lecture, they will be discussing their education outreach and the accessories designed in the last semester. Their talk will cover co-design process, the challenges of prototyping assistive devices, and the importance of user-driven innovation in accessibility. They will also highlight their club's community outreach efforts, which aim to connect engineers and makers with the disability community to create meaningful solutions. Attendees are encouraged to join in the discussion and share their perspectives on prosthetic design and accessibility. Sruthi Kumar is the president of the Accessible Prosthetics Club at the University of Pittsburgh. They are a rising senior mechanical engineering student, and they are a makerspace mentor in the engineering building. Norah Stivala is the vice president of the club, and she is a rising senior bioengineering student. They are both interested in designing prosthetics, and this last spring semester, they managed a project through an organization called Tikkun Olam Makers Project. This project aimed to design 3 accessories for 3 prosthetic users to use in addition to their already existing prosthetic. Their work bridges engineering and community impact, aiming to create meaningful, user-centered design. Without further ado, I am going to welcome Sruthi and Norah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that's good. You can go to the first slide or the next one. Do you want to?
For the opening slide, we have a picture of an athlete with a prosthetic leg bending over and stretching, and text reads, "Getting involved with the world of prosthetics, Norah Stivala and Sruthi Kumar."
As Elisa mentioned, I'm Shruti, and my description of myself, I'm short and I'm Indian and I have short black hair, and I use they them pronouns.
Hi, I'm Nora. I'm a tall white girl with brunettish hair. My pronouns are she, her, and I hope you enjoy our presentation.
On the slide, we have a picture. It's a cartoon of a young child with goggles on and lots of scientific instrumentation floating around them.
So as Elisa mentioned, I'm a senior mechanical engineering student at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm the president of the Accessible Prosthetics Initiative at Pitt.
And I'm Norah Stivala. I'm a senior bioengineering student at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm vice president of API.
So a bit about my background, like how did I get interested in prosthetics? So right now I'm kind of interested in automation engineering, and that kind of pushed me into prosthetics as well. And right now I'm doing an internship at Milwaukee Tools, and I'm learning a lot more about automation and robotics. But with prosthetics, I'm really interested in community outreach, especially because, of course, I'm a mechanical engineer, and Nora is a bioengineering student, so you'd expect, of course, bioengineers to be more into the prosthetic field. But as a mechanical engineering student, I really enjoy the outreach and just being able to connect with students about and teaching them about prosthetics. So again, as Elisa talked about, I'm a makerspace mentor at Pitt, and basically what that means is that I teach students how to use 3D printers, laser cutters, CNC machines, and other electronic equipment. And basically that just consists of making the space feel like safe for people to come in and use any type of machine without feeling afraid or anxious. And so for the Prosthetics Club this semester, I mostly initiated the Tom project, and the connection with mob accessibility was to kind of garner like more like community interest. And we were trying to find someone through mob accessibility that we could make an accessory for, which we'll talk more about in this presentation. And so one of the things that I worked on was running the fundraiser that we had, which was a carnation sale, or sorry, Lego flower sale. And so my future goals, so I'm interested in working in a field related to simulation, prosthetics, or automation, and I'm thinking of pursuing a master's in simulation.
So
On the screen, we have a picture of two prosthetics in purple. One is a prosthetic leg and one is a prosthetic arm.
So a little bit about my background. As Shruthi said, I am bioengineering, so I do have a little bit more of a biological background. So how did I get involved in the world of prosthetics? I have an interest in biomechanics. So in bioengineering, we have a few different tracks that we're able to pursue while in undergrad. Some of them include cellular track, signals track, biomechanics track. Each of them has their own niche part of them. But I realized after freshman year, I didn't want to do as much of the microscope, petri dish side of bioengineering. So I decided I wanted to go into biomechanics, learn more about prosthetics and how the body moves and all of that. So to kind of go along with this interest, I wanted to do prosthetics research. So as a bioengineering undergrad, you're mandatory to do research. So I wanted to be able to do my research in something I was passionate about. So my sophomore year, I got involved with doing research with prosthetics. And joining API was also something I did my sophomore year because I had discovered the club through posters around the school, and I thought what they did was really interesting and would help me get into this field of prosthetics even more.
On the screen, we see a cartoon of a person standing with two prosthetic arms.
And as I said, I guess I jumped ahead of myself a little bit here, but there are multiple tracks within bioengineering, and I chose biomechanics, and mostly due to my interest in prosthetics and wanting to further that interest.
On the screen, we see a photograph of, actually, as the non-expert, I'm not sure what's going on in this photograph. Can you please describe it yourself?
Yes. So this is actually a picture of me and my friend Casey Rorich. We were both working on the research project that I discussed earlier. I'm in the white there with the long brunette hair, and then Casey is on the left. She has dark black hair and she's wearing a polo. And then in the background, there are two amputees who were our participants in the research study that we were doing. We had about 4 participants in our research study. So these were the 2 that we were helping that day. But essentially, we were testing out our prototype on them. And so that's what this picture is showing. So the research that I did was through the University of Pittsburgh School of Rehabilitation Sciences. And specifically, my mentor for research, Dr. Fiedler, he works in the School of Masters of Prosthetics and Orthotics for Pitt, which is in Bakery Square, if anyone knows where that is. But I started working on the vibrational liner project with him. And it was very interesting because it's very hands-on work, a lot of design, a lot of actually physically doing things, which I think you don't get a lot of when you're in the classroom. So I was very excited to do this research. Okay.
On the screen, we have a cartoon of a person sitting with a quite a lot of things indicating pain in the leg. We have an electric zap, we have a knife, and we have a candle that is burning. And around it are words such as unnatural position and cramp and stabbing.
Yes, so as Alicia said, the picture is demonstrating someone who's experiencing phantom limb pain. So amputees will experience phantom limb pain typically soon after or sometimes long after they have had their limb amputated. And this can be a very painful sensation because, as she said, the pain can be described as burning, electric shocks, uncomfortableness, dull aches, sharp pains, any of the above. So, with the research I was doing, our goal was to create a prototype that would combat phantom limb pain in a way that wasn't harmful or detrimental to the person. Typically, phantom limb pain is combated with opioids or surgeries or ineffective devices such as a TENS device, which, if you don't know what that is, a TENS device is an electrical stimulation device where it has electrodes that will go into the skin, almost shock the residual limb so that a person feels relief. But all of these are not necessarily effective or safe for an amputee. So our goal with our research was to create a prototype that would combat this with vibration. And with that, vibration is something that would not harm the amputees. It would be a low level vibration, but hopefully the goal would be that with vibration on the residual limb, this would distract from the pain they were experiencing. Essentially, phantom limb pain is nerves in the residual limb firing as though the limb that was amputated is still present when this isn't true. So ideally, when the vibration is on the residual limb, this would distract the nerves almost and kind of tell the brain like the other part of the leg isn't there anymore, so you don't need to be sending painful signals. And the vibration, as I said, also would not be harmful, and that is the overarching goal because phantom limb pain is something that's very unknown. They don't know a whole lot about how to treat it or how to make it better for the amputees. So we wanted to try to help in any way possible with this. You can go to the next slide.
On the screen, we see an amputee, the residual limb of a leg amputee. One of the pictures, they are wearing the sock around it. In the second picture, there are a number of sensors wrapped around it. And in the third, see, for all that I offered to help with describing these, I don't actually know what's going on. So no, please, Nora, if you could explain these.
Yes, I can. So this is essentially our prototype that we had created. I'll try to my best to try to describe all the little bits of it. It has some weird components to it that even I didn't really know exactly what they were doing upon like first getting there. So in the first picture, as Lisa said, it is an amputee. One of the same participants from the original picture is wearing our prototype here. And there are small black rectangles on the picture. These are felt coverings, and they're over top of a cylindrical toothbrush motor, which if anyone has like an electric toothbrush, that vibration that you feel, that's from a small cylindrical motor. So that's what was within these little black squares. And basically we had a commercial liner, which is the sock that's on the amputee, specifically an Oser liner. It has these seal and rings around it, which help to maintain suction when in a socket. But in this image is just the sock on the amputee. And then we would cut into the liner just to the silicone base of it and then insert the motor on top of that and then cover it with felt so that it was within the amputees their liner already, so that way they wouldn't have to go home to get a device to help when they got phantom limb pain randomly, because phantom limb pain is not something that happens like, oh, it happens at 1 o'clock every day, I can go home and get treatment for it. It'll happen randomly when someone's driving, when they need almost immediate care to help fix that. Or often it occurs at night when they're sleeping, they just want to go back to bed. They don't want to have to go through all these things to fix it. So ideally, amputees are usually already wearing a liner, so with this liner already being on their limb, then they would just have to turn on a switch and they could experience relief. So the electronics that you see, there's a small rectangular Velcro that is on the liner. It's kind of has a silver sheen to it. It's conductive Velcro, and it's supposed to hit there's a felt liner that goes around the amputee's liner that is conductive tape on it, and that would hit these conductive Velcro pieces and then start up the motors without a bunch of wires being attached outside of the prototype itself, because it would also be very cumbersome to have 10 lines of wires going to some box outside of their limb. It wouldn't be very effective then either. So that's what this first picture is showing. And the second picture, because most amputees are wearing sockets over their liner, the device needed to fit within a socket so that way they would still be able to move about and they wouldn't need to be physically sitting and have their leg off. So in this case, we have conductive tape within the socket itself. And then the same thing is happening. There are motors within the liner, but the conductive Velcro that I mentioned is now hitting the walls of the socket where the conductive tape is. And then this is powering the motors through the battery pack that just sits right on to Velcro that's attached to the socket itself. So ideally, this socket would be attached to the limb, and they could just switch on and off the vibration whenever they felt like it. And then the third picture is kind of just like an interesting picture of like the inside of a liner. So this is specifically a gel liner, so it has a very flexible kind of gooey inside that is clear, so you can see the electronics that we put into the prototype. So there are small, here we were using different motors at the time because we tested a few different ones to see which ones were the most effective. Here we have circular motors, almost like, they almost look like a watch battery that would go into a watch. And they were within there, and then you could also see the wires that were integrated within the liner going to the same conductive Velcro that's in there. And this is just kind of a visual to show what was happening on the inside of the liner. And then I have another aspect of our prototype. So what I'm holding here is a prosthetic socket. So we had tried another iteration to see if we could maybe increase the vibration effects by placing the motors within the plastic socket itself, because we realized that while putting the motors in the liner and then putting the liner within the socket, there was a dampening effect happening and the person wasn't feeling the vibration as well. So we thought maybe if we put it in the socket, it would kind of vibrate the whole thing and there wouldn't be still any contact with the skin at all, because that could cause issues too if they're rubbing with the motors directly on the skin. So this was one of our prototypes. I had pulled the socket myself actually, and we put the conductive tapes on the socket still, but then we created small pockets with 3D printed cylinders that were similar to the size of the motors to create these divots that would come outside of the socket, so that way ideally the motors could be placed within them. And then you would just, the same way that these were connected, the electronic components could be connected to the conductive tape that was within the socket. And this is like a gold copper looking tape that's within the socket that's conductive, and this would then power the motors and ideally help with the phantom limb pain. So, and you can go to the next slide if you would like.
On the slide, we have a cartoon of a person standing with a leg prosthetic.
So my future goals, I would like to obtain a master's in mechanical engineering. I kind of want to get a little bit more into the design, the hands-on things, kind of with what I did with this prototype. So I would ideally like to work in research and development, specifically at a prosthetics company, to create new and interesting designs with feet and legs and arms. And so I think that obtaining a master's in mechanical engineering would kind of help along with this process, so I have a more general background to go along with my more specified bioengineering degree.
So
Uh,
what?
I'm
Sorry, go for it. You go for it, sorry.
On the slide, we have a logo for Pitt API. There is an image of a biological hand shaking hands with a prosthetic hand, and underneath it says Accessible Prosthetics Initiative.
So what is API? So API is the Accessible Prosthetics Club, or Accessible Prosthetics Initiative at Pitt. And so this club is a national level club and student level, like just within individual school level club. It's student run, and when we're focused on creating low-cost prosthetic accessories, and our intentions are to create a network of community members who are passionate about accessible care at the student level. And I think a big thing we're doing with our club is just making sure that students can actually have hands-on experience with making prosthetics and just design, because that seems to be a point of like issue in a lot of classes where students aren't really getting the like ability to actually like try out what they're learning and try out the design process. Get the next. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Fine, it's fine. On the slide, we have a cartoon of two children playing. One of them has, it looks like a prosthetic arm, and one has a prosthetic leg.
So some of the education initiatives we have at API include STEAM Saturdays, and this takes place in the Hill District. And there's a community center, and basically every Saturday during the semester, we run like an hour session where we kind of introduce kids to engineering concepts, and we teach them about what prosthetics are and how we can like design using or towards their or people with disabilities, like just designing for them. And so one of the activities we did at one of the events were like creating like a prosthetic hand that could throw a ball into like a target. And so this was like an engaging way that we could get students to like, you know, move around, like get excited about engineering and specifically prosthetic design. And so on the slide, I have it as like we introduce students to basic prototyping skills using like cardboard, glue, foam, and string. And yeah, the whole point is just to introduce students to engineering at like a younger age so they can get excited about it and not just feel like it's this stuffy thing that they can't like get into or something, you know?
On the screen, we see a prosthetic or cartoon of a prosthetic leg.
So, as Sruthi was saying, we have other aspects to API. So we have education, like she mentioned, and we also have production. And as Shruti said, we do production because we want people at Pitt to be able to get that hands-on experience that most engineering students want. Most people come into engineering wanting a hands-on job, and they want to be able to build things, they want to be able to design things. And I think a lot of our classes are very much in the classroom listening to lectures. We don't get a whole lot of that hands-on until our very last year at Pitt. So what I always liked about API and why I joined it was so that we could go down there and we could actually build things. And like Shruti said, she's in the makerspace. You get to learn new things. Not everyone knows the makerspace is there. So by being a part of the production team on API, you're able to learn more about using all of these different machines and becoming more comfortable with them in a setting that is run by students. So there's no pressure and everyone's willing to help everyone. So you can go to the next slide.
On the slide, we see a logo with a triangle, a circle, and a square, and it says Tikkun Olam Makers.
So this was the specific project that we wanted to try to work on this spring. In the fall, we didn't have too much of a hands-on project to work on with API, so we wanted to be able to get the students in the club more involved and have something to work towards. And this club, Tikkun Olam Makers, they have a competition each year where you can submit prototypes and design ideas to possibly then be accepted and you can win. And then you also, without any kind of FDA approval or anything, you can make small additive devices to prosthetics, because obviously we can't make whole prosthetics in undergrad club because this wouldn't be very safe. But so we add slight accessible additions to prosthetics so that it makes everyday life things easier that most people probably don't even know that they're doing something differently for it. For example, people have additions to like holding a pen. If someone has a prosthetic hand, they add like an extra support to a holder for a pen so that they can write easier, or just a platform more if they're trying to tie their shoes, something to rest their arm on while they're tying it. Very small things, things that can be 3D printed, so nothing too crazy. You don't need a lot of work to go into it. And basically we would use our makerspace to 3D print these, so students in the club can then have the ability to learn how to 3D print, how to design on CAD softwares or computer-aided design softwares. These include SolidWorks and Inventor are some of these. And then we're able to, after students actually design these themselves, go into the 3D print room, hit print, and watch their design actually become real. And then once you put your designs onto the Tookomola Makers site, they become open source and they're free and anyone can download them. So if an amputee did like one of the accessible add-ons, they could go on there and print it themselves and have someone 3D print it and use it themselves. So it makes it very accessible and it's goes along with what our club does. And specifically, Pitt actually has a Tom club at our school, so we kind of join forces with them too. Both of us have very small clubs. Not a lot of people show up to the meetings all the time because everyone's busy. So we kind of join forces and we kind of try to get as many people involved as possible to actually make this project worth it and have it go somewhere this spring. Oh, sorry. Yes, next slide.
So some of our recruitment and outreach we did this semester included talking to HURL, and if you guys don't know what that is, that's the Human Engineering Research Labs, and this is here in Bakery Square. And so this was done to find more people interested in a prosthetic accessory. Eventually, Norah found 2 people that she had worked with last summer and in the past in previous research that we could like work with to make an accessory that would work for their like because they would be very involved with sports. Like one of them was like an avid biker, and then like he had mobility issues with his or like problems with his knee staying aligned while biking. And then another person, Lance, we worked with him, and then he wanted to do like water sports basically, and we were trying to make a 3D printed accessory for that as well. And so with Mob, we kind of got connected with this outreach because we were trying to find someone for this accessory, but we got involved like this, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And to do this, we kind of just sent cold emails to get people interested in API in a community level in Pittsburgh. Next slide.
So our prototyping process. So once we got people involved, which I think was probably the hardest part, reaching out to people, getting to talk back and getting a consistent communication going because everyone's busy and it's very hard. But like Sruthi mentioned, the project that I had worked on previously last summer, the amputees that I worked with, I was still in contact with them and I asked them if they'd be willing to participate in another project of mine. So I had reached out to Lance and Matthew were the 2 men that we worked with, and specifically Matthew, as Shruti said, was a biker, and he experienced, because he's an above the knee amputee, he experienced when he was biking that his prosthetic knee would go in and out as he was biking, and it was unstable. So the goal was to create a 3D printed device that would kind of keep his foot stable and at an angle, so that way when he was biking, the knee wouldn't go in and out. And then Lance, he is a water skier, and I don't know if anyone knows what Traz is, but they do it's at Conneaut Lake in the summer. They have a water skiing event for those with disabilities. They have adaptive water skis, so you sit in them instead of standing, and then they drag them on a boat over the lake there. It's a really fun activity. I volunteered there last year, and Lance really enjoys it, and he does it every year. And Lance is also an above the knee amputee, and he's also above the elbow amputee. So what he wants to do when he's water skiing is he wants to be able to like go no hands essentially. But he struggles because he wants to be able to hold this water skiing rope with his amputated arm, but it creates a rubbing and he can't put enough pressure to be able to have his other hand up. So we were tasked with trying to figure out some kind of sling or some sort of device that would help him keep that arm stable without hurting himself so that he could have his other hand free and just enjoy his water skiing experience. So that was a little bit of our like brainstorming. We kind of came up with that based on the activities that they told us that they enjoy doing. And then after that, we kind of all sat down and tried to do some rough sketching of what we thought might be possible for us to do at our level of undergraduate makerspace and make it easy for them to use within the time constraint that we had of the spring semester. So we did CAD designing, as I said, the computer aided design. We did the sketching, and then we had someone design the parts on CAD, and we had a few iterations. We would design it on CAD, print it out, see what it looked like, tweak a few things, do it again. And then we actually had Matthew and Lance come in so that we could test our current prototypes with them, get their feedback in person to see what they might want to change, if they had any other ideas that they were like, oh, I need this with it, or this would really help if it had this. And that was kind of our prototyping process with this.
So on this slide, okay, so I can just kind of describe what's on here. So the top left, we have the CAD model that we made. So basically, it's almost like a cube type thing, and then a flat piece, and like a hemisphere. And we have a physical version of this as well. I should have taken that out earlier, but we have this here, and this is just a prototype, and we'll work on it more during the semester. So this is the hemisphere as shown in the picture, and then we have this triangular block thing, and then basically the whole point is just that Matthew can put his foot inside and then use this adapter type thing, like, and put it on top of his existing pedal. And so this part, the top circular hemisphere, and the two zip tie pieces, this and the back triangular part, they're all 3D printed, and we designed them essentially as a club. And it's all just supposed to adapt into what Matthew already has. And so more on the slide, we can kind of see on the bottom left, it's kind of the concept of his foot actually going into the piece. And yeah, this was just a prototype though, and the next semester we'll kind of continue iterating and working with Matthew, and kind of seeing like how we can make this maybe usable for other people as well. Because like Nora was talking about, the issue is that his knee kind of shifts left to right as he's biking, and it's not necessarily straight, and that kind of causes discomfort, you know. So we're trying to, you know, iterate and see what we can do with that. Go to the next.
On the slide, we have a photo of a group of people standing and posing and smiling. And on the bottom, it says meeting with Lance and Matthew.
So this was our in-person meetup with Lance and Matthew to get a better idea of what they wanted from these prototypes. So Lance and Matthew are the two men in the middle, and this is kind of our small section of API that consistently showed up to meetings in this picture. But we were all very excited to actually have participants for our project, and that we were able to get somewhere with this project, and it didn't end up just being that no one showed up, and we were able to get some progress going.
So for the API Club in 2025 and 2026, we plan to continue working on the Tom project from this past year. And we plan to recruit more students to join the club next year, of course, especially the freshmen. And we'll continue to participate in our educational outreach. And yeah, we hope to stay in contact with Mob Accessibility as well. And we hope to volunteer with them and learn more about how you guys outreach. And we also would love to like volunteer with you guys as well. But yeah, thank you all for coming.
These are just our sources, because my mentor, he does have a patent on the vibrational device that we were working on. So I just wanted to give him some credit for that. And Casey Roach also has a paper on this if anyone's interested.
Well, I'll throw this open to questions and comments in a second. I just am so delighted to have the two of you join us. That was a fantastic talk, especially I think this is your first formal presentation,
Yes.
so we are honored. I have a family member who's an amputee who has a lot of problems with phantom limb pain. So I truly hope that this device is, works out, gets more testing, because I think she could really use something like that. So does anyone, I'll first throw it out to people here in person in the audience. We have one hand up so far, so let me bring this over here.
I wanted to thank you because I thought that this was really cool and fun. And as somebody who's known a lot of amputees, I did not know that there was a whole range of sort of adaptations that might be available for them. So that was very interesting. I had a question about how you measure pain improvement with the vibrational, um, with the helper. I mean, I understand that you could ask people and say, does it feel better? But do you do things like also put them through an MRI and measure brain activity so you can say, okay, objectively, these parts of their brains are behaving differently? How did you collect improvement data?
So with that, that was definitely one of our struggles because I think our project was very small. It was just me and my friend Casey working on it with our mentor. There wasn't a big funding for it or anything, so we didn't have access to any of those more objective ways of measuring pain. We did just like a 0 to 10 scale, and that was one of the things that was very difficult about it is because everyone's pain range is different. One person's 10 is another person's 5, so you can't gauge exactly how well the vibration is working. We definitely struggled too with the prototypes being consistently effective because we tried to do at-home trials because phantom limb pain does come at random points in time. If the participants happen to come in, most often they didn't have phantom limb pain in that instance, so we couldn't test the prototype effectively to be like, okay, is that helping phantom limb pain because they were pain-free at the moment because they were able to drive here today. So we would usually do at-home testing where we would give them the prototype to take home. But because it was in the very early stages, it often, the small delicate wires would break and they would have trouble then actually using it. So definitely in the very early stages of this, we were doing some testing with having them just in person and seeing where, if we place the vibrational motors on different locations on their limb, if there was a specific spot they said was the most sensitive, because we thought at least if we can maybe find the most sensitive spot, if we put a lot of the vibration there, maybe we can target the nerves a little bit more without knowing the exact like nerve structure and everything behind this, because we were doing this more from like a trial and error perspective as opposed to doing, like you said, like an MRI and knowing everything about this person and being able to target specific things. But yeah, that definitely would be a more objective way to do it, and further down the road that would probably be very helpful. But yes, it was very hard to have a more subjective approach to it.
Okay, I see that there's people online. Oh, do we have more questions in the room? I've got someone next to me here. Please leave your mask on.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. Really cool stuff. In terms of the particular prosthetics that you design, is it that you get participants and then you work with them to decide what type of prosthetic that you're working toward? Or do you typically have a specific model or a type of prosthetic in mind and you're looking for participants who sort of fit the criteria that you're looking for testing a certain idea? What's that, back and forth? What does that look like for you?
So this semester with the Tom, like with partnering with Tom, we kind of did more like kind of like physical like this, or I don't know how to phrase this, but kind of like things that would help with like stability, or things that would help with like like is it
Everyday tasks.
yeah, everyday tasks. Like for example, when we visited Hurl, they had one where it was like someone, it was like a mouse that someone who had like a hook for a hand could use. So things like that where it was kind of more like lower resolution, something that students could make like in a makerspace. So I'd say that was kind of like the criteria, if anything, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what we were doing it with. And also like this semester it just happened to be that we worked a lot with people who did like sports, but in the future, we'd totally be interested in doing like different things as well.
Okay, we have another question back here in person.
So with regards to the phantom limb pain, I find that absolutely fascinating. But why is it the vibration is so effective at kind of distracting the nerves and getting them from kind of just running haywire to resetting themselves and stop sending random signals? Why is vibration so effective in comparison to potentially using like heat or cold or any other kind of, I guess, stimulus to get them to fire some sort of signal rather than just specifically, movement with vibration?
So the vibration came from a study that we had researched that they had found that vibration was helpful in combating phantom limb pain. I don't know the exact science behind why like the movement may help or why heat doesn't or coolness doesn't. I think it probably has to do with more of like the temperature of the limb like changes and everything, volume changes, all that stuff I think is very variable. So I think maybe vibration adds something that is very starkly different to the amputee's residual limb, and it's shocking them almost out of that area that they're in, because something that's just cold or hot might not be enough to actually get rid of the stabbing pains that people feel. Almost like I feel like putting an ice pack on like a wound, like it would help it to some extent, but it wouldn't get a person out of that state of pain. So I think the goal is almost to, like if you were to get like an electric shock, but in a lesser extent, it makes you more aware and like, oh, there's actually not pain down there. But I do think there's definitely not a whole lot of research in that area, which is why we were trying to have a prototype and test it further. We didn't have completely conclusive results, like I said, because it was very difficult with getting the prototype to consistently work. But there was a paper done on that vibration therapy in general was effective at combating phantom limb pain.
It's interesting. I'll get to the online things in a moment, but I have multiple sclerosis and I deal with a lot of neuropathic pain, and I'd be fascinated to see, because like I have pain that sometimes is similar to what would be described as phantom limb,
Right.
with the burning and the shooting electricity.
Mm-hmm.
It would be fascinating to see if that worked and if it had applications to other forms of neuropathic pain. So just I love it when innovations for one thing can be broadly used for another. So anyway, we have John Tague. You're next.
Thanks, Elisa. Question, are you looking for folks to,
Wait, hold on one second. We need to turn the speaker up in the room. Hang on. I'm sorry, John. Bear with us one second. Woo! Okay, try again, John.
okay, are you looking for individuals to participate with you now? I mean, or in other words, or if somebody wanted to participate with you, like I have a friend who has a prosthetic leg, and I wondered if she might be able to get in touch with you. How's that work?
So if in regards to the phantom limb pain research, my mentor is actually on sabbatical right now and we're not doing anything with it right this second. I think with API in the fall, definitely looking for more people to be involved with the TOM project and creating more accessible and add-on things to prosthetic devices. So if she's interested, you can definitely give her our like I think we have an API email, right? Do we have that on the slides or?
I don't think we
Yeah.
have that on the slides, but we can definitely like send it to Elisa. And
Yeah, if anyone is looking to contact these speakers, if you email Access Mob Pittsburgh, AccessMobPittsburgh @gmail.com, we'll be more than happy to put you through to the folks at API.
I see that you said that you work with Hurl, and most of us are familiar with Hurl. But do you do any work with Mark Smaler? Because he does a lot of stuff in adaptive sports, I think, and I wondered if that rang a bell.
I don't think we've talked to him before, but I think definitely we'd be interested in getting in contact with him for sure.
This
But you
is
know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't think we do.
I do, John. This is
Okay.
Elisa, and I'd be more than happy to set up an introduction.
Because he's a man, I'm on a city county task force with him, so that's why I mentioned, because I haven't seen much in a while, but again, this sounds like it's good work and it's needed for sure. And I think Elisa talking about interest, there are other applications that can be used for people that don't necessarily have prosthetic legs or arms, right? So there could be an application beyond that. Is at least what I've heard anyways.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, John. Monica?
Sorry, it's hard to unmute when you have a kitty cat on your lap. Hi there. I find the work that you've done with the phantom limb pain fascinating because some of the work, I am an amputee. I'm a right BKA.
Mhm.
And what I have found when I first became an amputee about 20 years ago, I did a lot of touch therapy with my leg and
Mhm.
touching the end of my residual limb and doing that a lot. So to try to retrain my body to understand where it stops. So I
Mhm.
find that you're using vibration fascinating to stop the pain. I could see other applications as well. And also, I think that it would be interesting to see if maybe it's something that would work with new amputees
Mhm.
to retrain the body. So I love the work that you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's
Um,
definitely a lot of applications. Hopefully it can get back up and running. It always comes down to like there not being enough resources and not being
yeah,
enough ability to actually get it going or get it out there, but I really hope that one day it can be.
no, yeah, I know. I'm well aware of that. Funding is always an issue. And just curious, have you worked with Dr. Max Hurwitz?
The name sounds kind of familiar to me. I don't think I haven't worked with him, but is he part of what is he
He's
part of?
he's part of the PMR department of UPMC, and he
Okay.
specializes in prosthetics.
Okay.
Specifically leg prosthetics, and I'll get you an introduction to him.
Yeah, that
Uh,
would be great.
because he is really he uses things like the Bowie system and he's into the more techie part of it and
Okay.
also keeping people going and moving and doing really amazing things. So, and I'm trying to think of something that you guys, the only thing I can think of that I would work with API on is I love to ride my bike. And it's
Mhm.
not so much that my knee turns out as it is having something that I can glue my fake foot leg down foot onto the pedal.
Mhm.
But I can also get it off on my own because I know they have the things that you can lock on, but
Right.
they just don't work for me. So maybe that's something we can pursue in the future.
Yes, for sure. I think that would definitely be a project we could work with API.
Yep. So thank you.
I love how the Pittsburgh disability community is so interconnected and, all these great introductions happen from things like this. I want to ask, and I'm going to ask each of you to answer this. What is your favorite part of the process of making a new adaptive device?
I think like the creative aspect and like brainstorming is the most fun part because that's what I like about engineering in the first place. And so I think working with people and trying to see like what problems do they have and kind of work like basing like creative solutions off of that. I think that's what I find most like fun about this.
I think for me, I definitely enjoy getting to know the people behind it when we're working with people. My favorite thing with the Phantom Limb Pain project was when we would actually get the prototype to work like in person and the participant was like, oh my God, like if like because they have like smaller like phantom sensations almost, not like pains, and they'd be like, oh my God, it made them like go away. And that was like the most rewarding thing that like, oh my gosh, it works like a little bit at least, that it's doing something. And I always my thing with bioengineering is everything. I want to do something that makes a little bit of an impact, even if it's really small, that it makes me feel like I'm doing something to help someone just so that it ends up going somewhere, even if it doesn't, just something small. So I do really like, I guess, the end result and getting that feedback and just getting to know the people along the way. So
Well, I'll put a last call out. I mean, is there anything else you guys want to tell us about the work that you do or any projects that you've been working on? The sky's the limit. We've got another half hour if you feel like telling us stuff, or we can end early. Both are valid options.
I don't think
Oh,
I
John has his hand up again. Let's get John back on the line.
this is kind of a little humorous, I thought, is what's your theme song? Good Vibrations?
Yeah. I think that's actually because one of the participants we had that was there kind of from the beginning. I think that's kind of where the idea came from, like slightly from the song, because I feel like it was called, like the project was called like Good Vibrations a little bit. I think that there was like an aspect to that's where that came from. So I have heard that before. So
All right.
it's definitely a perfect fit for it.
Well, I mean, is there anything else you want to add or?
I don't think at this point in time, but
Okay, that's fine. Well, can everyone give a big round of applause for our lovely speakers? Thank you so much. I'm going to do a shout out for our upcoming events. So our next lecture night is on Monday, July 28th. It is going to be on current threats to healthcare in Pennsylvania, Medicaid, and the silent repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And our September lecture night is going to be on September 29th. And it is going to be the kickoff event for Week Without Driving. There are QR codes for both of those lectures on the side if you are on, have access to your phone, or if you just go to accessmobpittsburgh.org, and then there's a drop-down menu called Community Lecture Night, and under 2025, you'll find those. And please save the date for November 24th, 2025. That will be our November lecture night. The topic is TBA, and these are all going to be virtual only. Next slide, please. We run entirely on donations. We are 501c3 under Disability Pride PA. We have on the screen right now QR codes for ways to donate by PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. Pardon me. You can also go to accessmobpittsburgh.org/donate. Just please be sure that when you do that, you write AMP in the payment section so that they know that everything goes to Access Mob Pittsburgh. Is that our final slide? Well, then I just want to remind everyone who's, anyone who's watching this live or here in person, please go and vote in the Pennsylvania primary tomorrow. I will speak into the camera. So yes, please go and vote in the Pennsylvania primary tomorrow. And I just hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.